Mexico and Colorado right now. We've just got kind of a hazy sunshine. Reminds me of some of the sunsets that I used to see in Korea. Taking a look at the charts. Southerly flow in place across North Texas here. And where's that warm front? Well, we've got 80s south of the Red River in this area right here. North of there, lower to mid 70s. And a little bit of wind convergence in place there. So it appears that warm front is about right here. And moving up into the Panhandle, you can see northerly flow. So we've got a bit of the Canadian air mass working its way southward. And the leading edge runs from about Kansas City right now, passing through about Wichita, then down to Alva, looks like maybe Elk City, to Memphis, Texas, right around the Plainview area, and then to about Roswell right there. And some of that is being enhanced by outflow from these storms here. A lot of this elevated stuff in Dodge City and Elkhart. And where's the warm front? It looks like it's finally taken shape. Looks like that's going to be in the Abilene area right here. That's going to be a bad plot right there. That's a bad plot also. So actually I think we're running from about Abilene up to Altus and Mangum. So that puts a triple point right there in western Oklahoma. So not only do we have the dry line, but we've got the warm front located right there. So a lot of ingredients in place for convective weather this evening. Okay, here's the SPC analysis showing the elevated storms there over southwestern Kansas. This bit of troughing that we have right here, this inverted trough, that's due to that Canadian air mass coming out of Kansas and the Panhandle. This other inverted trough, this is possibly to do with the warm front. There could also be a little bit of a change in the warm front slope aloft that could be causing that also. And then the dry line, we're not going to really see a reflection of that on the isobar field. Okay, 250 millibar chart showing a trough out over the Rocky Mountain region. Polar front jet from Portland, Oregon down to Las Vegas. Then over to Garden City and Kansas City, up to Chicago and Detroit there. So we got quite a bit of fast flow aloft, and that's going to help storm organization once they get going. And we've even got 55, 60 knot flow right there around the Dallas-Fort Worth area and Interstate 20. 500 millibar flow also showing about 55 knots in that area. So polar front jet from central Arizona to Missouri there. And then we go to 700 millibars, and we can see a lot of the capping in place because of those 11 Celsius readings here in Fort Worth and Shreveport. And we've even got 14 there in Del Rio. 9 there, still a little bit of capping there. And that's because we're advecting some of the plateau air masses in Mexico eastward. But we're going to start gradually breaking that down as the upper level dynamics work into the area. 850 millibar chart, this is probably a little bit too far north, but we do see the 50 knot flow there this morning at Fort Worth. And 40 knots right there at Topeka, so a little bit of a low-level jet coming into play here. And we'll certainly have a pretty stout low-level jet tonight. 850 millibar front also showing on this chart, looking something like that there. Looks like the 850 millibar warm front something like that right there from Kansas City to St. Louis. Okay, this is a quick look at the visible imagery, showing a lot of cirrus across Texas, all the way up into the Four Corners and Kansas and Oklahoma. So this is kind of a bummer because this kind of covers up the low cloud field. This makes it difficult to find the boundaries. We know that warm front is under here somewhere. And we can see a little bit of the stratocumulus field right here, but it kind of disappears once it goes underneath that cirrus deck. So about the only way we can really track that is with surface data. Looks like a little bit of maybe dust being picked up in West Texas here. The thickness and isobar chart showing things are becoming strongly baroclinic in West Texas and Oklahoma. So there's that warm frontal boundary right there, cold front stretching out towards Tucson, around Yuma and the Mojave Desert. And we can see that the cold air mass pretty well in place in central Nevada and Salt Lake City and all the way up to Denver. So that's driving a lot of the cold air advection to the south and southeast there. And we can see that the Gulf is open here. We've got about 4 or 5 isobar lines. And that's showing that the fetch of moisture is looking like that right there. So it's probably just a matter of time now before we break down the cap along that warm front and start getting some storms going in Oklahoma or Arkansas there. We'll take a look at the soundings this morning for Fort Worth. Okay, so here's what Fort Worth looked like this morning. You can see very strong capping there at 800 millibars. So the 700 millibar level, just cutting the top part of that capping. And it's possible the 850 millibar chart reveals some of that cap strength also. And we've got what looks like a little bit of a frontal inversion there. You can see the dew point tends to increase through that layer right there. So I think it's possible that at this time the warm front was just south of Dallas. So what's going to happen is as the dynamics approach the area, that's going to act to break down a lot of this. We're going to see strong capping or strong development of cold air aloft through adiabatic cooling. So we'll see the temperature line kind of move over to the left a bit. And that'll be kind of a top-down process there. That'll act to steepen the lapse rate and prepare things for convection, either tonight or tomorrow. And I guess we can take a look at Norman and we'll see what they look like this morning. And also showing some of the capping there, kind of centered on 700 millibars there. And we can see a little bit of the frontal inversion right there at about 850, 860 millibars. So we've got some pretty decent moisture in place, 50s dew points, all the way up to about 6,000 or 7,000 feet. And then you drop down to Fort Worth here. Now we've got low 60s to upper 50s dew points through a fairly deep layer right there. Okay, then we'll look at dynamics real quick. This is the chart corresponding to right now, so polar front jet kind of in place like that from about El Paso up to Oklahoma City. A lot of waves just north of the polar front axis right there. And maybe a few waves starting to come out of western Texas right there in northern Mexico. But not a whole lot going on right now. And then for tomorrow morning, you can see things start to become a little bit unstable through this area. Unstable in terms of wave activity. So here's a bunch of waves right there. Pretty prominent one coming out of the Big Bend area right there. And then by the afternoon, things actually look pretty channeled. So maybe one little wave coming through Louisiana right there, another one along the Texas coast. So let's see, where did those sneak by? Those sneaked through during the morning hours along the Texas coast right there. So those will just kind of move northward and maybe help to produce a little bit of elevated showers early tomorrow morning in East Texas there. Since there's not much help with upper level dynamics, I'm not too sure the cap is going to be removed until later during the day tomorrow. And then certainly you can see things degrade after 0Z, after we do the webcast tomorrow night. And then the main upper level trough works eastward. Pretty good cold core low over northwest Oklahoma on Sunday. And then it'll move to the northeast up to the Midwest area by Monday. All right, let's take a quick look at the forecast here. And let's see, I'll set that right there. That's going to be the current map right there. And before I go much further, let me see who we've got in chat this evening. Got Carl Berghoff and Andrew. Sue M mentions quite a severe thunderstorm going up an hour ago. And didn't get the radar image yet because I have not been in my email yet. I've been running a little bit behind here. Justin Pulliam is here and Eddie W. Sue M reporting on a little bit of damage at her place there. Alex Front is here and Ryan Toomey's ready for Mother Nature's wrath. Adam Davis returning to the Great Plains 2 weeks from tonight. Michael Burrell and Fun with Tech and Brian Harp are here, and Victor Cabot. Brett Dean mentioning that it's 80 degrees in southern Jersey. More heat and humidity this weekend. Eric Sipes asking about possible supercells along Interstate 44 tonight. Kevin McKinney is here, and Brett Dean mentioning hit the like button. Yeah, definitely appreciate that. Ryan Toomey's mentioning it's hot and steamy in southern Florida, 92 degrees for a high there. We've got Mike Wan and Fred Reamer and Dorothy Tornado and Alexi Pinkson and Brian Hart mentioning tornado warnings in Indiana and Illinois. Jamie Hammonds here from Austin, warm and windy there. Okay, so yeah, we'll have to take a look up north and see what's going on there too. Let me bring up the SPC panel here and we'll shift this a little further to the north. And we might have to go a little bit to the east also. Okay, so here's the Midwest area, and we can see a lot of storms up there from the Evansville area up to just north of Cincinnati, and what looks like a lot of anvil activity up in central Ohio there. So the moisture supply, you can kind of see that looking at the isobars right here. Pretty good pressure gradient through Tennessee here. And that's helping to feed these storms with a bit of a moisture supply there. And the actual temperatures and dew points are looking like this. The shading and the blue lines indicating the moisture field. So the higher moisture values are right along the leading edge of that line here. And I can see dew point values of about 68 to 69 in this area right here around Louisville. And then they kind of drop off as you go further to the north. So the storms up here having a little bit more of a moisture problem. So pretty much from Lexington and Cincinnati westward, that's the best air mass we have in place ahead of that line. And the red shading, or the red lines, showing that we've got a cold pool across this area here. So that cold pool, something like that, and it's probably combining a little bit with that warm front that we have down in Oklahoma and southern Missouri there. Okay, to check out the forecast, I think we're going to take a look at the high resolution rapid refresh model. And let me bring this up to 23Z. So the latest high-resolution rapid refresh run we have is for 6 p.m., showing a little bit of that high-based activity in southwestern Kansas and northern Texas Panhandle. That's matching pretty well with what we see on the charts. So we know that warm front is lurking down near the Red River. So no initiation according to this model early in the evening. But you can see a little bit of high base convection starting up north of Oklahoma City and in the Tulsa area. One little cell there around Wichita Falls. And then by about 2 in the morning, we break out a lot of shower activity, mostly to the west where we've had some cap removal during the day. So the warm front has probably moved a little further northward, kind of like that. The flow is becoming a little bit more deep by this time, more south to north like that. So we're developing more of a channeled flow at this point. So by 3 and 12, we've got a little bit of an MCS moving eastward across the Oklahoma City area, but not making much progress any further south. So it looks like kind of a quiet day initially on Saturday. And things will probably remain capped during the day, and these are probably some elevated storms here in Oklahoma. Then we'll check out the NAM 3-kilometer chart. So this is showing the MCS moving eastward through Oklahoma overnight. Looks pretty quiet in Texas initially until about 2120Z. Looks like at this point we finally see some cap removal. This is right around the time of tomorrow evening's webcast. Then we get some storms developed through East Texas there. Those will move through overnight into Louisiana. And then things will be out of the picture here. Then later during the day on Saturday, probably a few severe storms in the Memphis area. And maybe up to southeastern Missouri there. The NAM 3-kilometer also going for a little bit of activity in southern Mississippi and the New Orleans area. So we'll watch for that too later tomorrow, or actually on Sunday. Okay, so let's put that together and look at the forecast. Okay, so overnight convection in Oklahoma. That'll be the main focus for tonight, just northeast of this Bear Clinic low. That's in the Seymour, Texas area. And there goes that MCS overnight. And then for tomorrow, by the time we do the webcast, GFS going for a little bit of an MCS from eastern Oklahoma up to central Missouri there. Cold front making it through the I-35 corridor in Texas. Warm front in southern Illinois through southern Ohio here. Bit of a moisture feed up to Mississippi tomorrow. So we may see a few severe storms anywhere from central Illinois all the way down to North Texas there. So we'll have a few storms to look at on tomorrow's webcast. And for Sunday, things move eastward. There goes the front out into the Gulf of Mexico, warm front lifting north into Michigan, and occlusion in Iowa right there. And for Monday, things will move further to the northeast. Cold front just east of the Appalachians, warm front up in Quebec, and occlusion all the way back to the Great Lakes there. So this will be kind of a mild day, Sunday going into Monday. Then for Tuesday's webcast, pretty quiet, just high pressure across the southeast U.S. Opening up the Gulf again. There it goes. Got a bit of a warm front maybe developing along the Red River, so we can't really rule out thunderstorm activity Tuesday night. A little bit of upslope there in Colorado. Then for Wednesday, that frontal system comes together. Another cold front going through East Texas. Warm front lifting up into the central Mississippi River area. And we can see storms all the way from New Orleans up to the St. Louis area. And the Gulf is pretty much open through that lower Mississippi Valley region. Okay, then Thursday, things move eastward into the eastern U.S. there. High pressure again for Texas. And then looks like a quiet weekend for the Central Plains. We get this one little Canadian system moving south through the Central Plains on Sunday. And the Gulf is open, but I guess we're pretty well capped at the start of the week around May 8th. Okay, so May 9th, May 10th, looks like maybe some storms up in Kansas and Nebraska there. The Gulf is kind of not quite open at that point. But by the 10th or 11th, there it is. So probably a chance of storms along this warm front in Iowa and Illinois on the 10th through the 11th. And then it'll move eastward. Then we get kind of a cool pattern in place in the central and southern plains. This looks kind of like an isentropic lift across Texas. You can see we've got upslope in place there. So that's around the 14th or 15th. And then we get to the end of the run. Okay, I wanted to mention a little bit about extreme instability. We talked about that yesterday. And I actually have a correction to throw into that, because I noticed something was missing. All right, let's go through that list right here. Davenport, Illinois. Let me see if I can show you what happened on that day. Severe reports looked like this. That was the 10th most extreme day I could find, and only one little cell there around the Chicago area. Okay, and that brings us to our second most unstable day, and that's going to be July 17th, 2011, Aberdeen. Severe reports looked like this. We had a little bit of a storm moving through North Dakota. So the satellite loop on that day looked like this. You can see a pretty powerful storm there north of Bismarck, and you can see that started moving to the right. Actually, we had a new storm developing northeast of Bismarck, and that actually was a strong right mover there. And I think I have some radar up for that. So there you go. That's 1920, showing one of those storms out in eastern North Dakota. And that moved to here, and then we had this new storm going up around Jamestown. So there were tornadoes reported with each of these cells. Remember, 6,000 Cape. And this definitely had a supercell-like structure. Okay, number 8. That's going to be June 25th, 1990, Topeka. And the satellite for that day looked like this. Pretty clear. So I guess we were pretty well capped on that day. A few cells way out there in the high plains, but those didn't do very much. So that's what happened on that day. Brings us to number 7. May 26, 1997, Fort Worth. Sounding reported 6,700 Cape. Well, here's what happened on that day. This is the satellite sequence for that day. May 26 of 1997. You can see we've got quite a bit of moisture along and east of I-35. Then as the day wore on, you can see what looks like a bit of a shortwave moving across Oklahoma, and we get some storms going up right there around Shawnee. And this is the southern storm where I saw that tornado with Gene Rodin, and there were other chasers all the way up to the Kansas border here. But you can see Fort Worth was capped on that day. So even though you have extreme instability, it's not always realized. The cap was a lot weaker up north. Okay. Number 6. July 12, 95, Davenport. Okay, the sequence looked like this. It's like a few high-base showers southwest of Davenport, and they didn't do much of anything at all. So once again, the cap prevailed. Number 5, 7,000 Cape over Charleston. And I had mentioned to explain something about this. Let me bring up the sounding for that day. This is not the sounding. I'm going to have to bring that up. I'm just a little bit disorganized here, but yeah, I've got the data right here. So that was 2007, August 10th. Okay, so we're loading the data for that day. Remember, this is Charleston, August 10th of 2007. And this is what 7,000 Cape looks like. So you can see that the lapse rate's very steep there. Let me fix this real quick. Okay, so you can see part of the problem here we've got a surface dew point here of about 75 Fahrenheit, and then you can see just off the surface it's showing 86 Fahrenheit dew point, which is very unlikely. And then up at about 1,000 feet, 1,500 feet, we've got dew points of about 81, and then that gradually drops off. So there was some sort of error. I suspect there was an error. But if those conditions were actually there, that would be a very high CAPE, and Rayab was going for 5,800 based on this. The values I got were from the University of Wyoming there. Okay, number 4, same amount, 70-35 CAPE, in 2008 at Lincoln. Okay, so on that day, Lincoln, Illinois, well, there was a little bit of storm activity in northern Illinois. And the satellite looked like this. You can see these storms coming together just north of the Quad Cities into the Rockford area, and the actual storms look like that. So a little bit reminiscent of a bow echo. Okay. Then number 3, that's where the correction is. August 28th of 1990, that was the Plainfield, Illinois day, 7,300 CAPE. And I know somebody in chat was mentioning that yesterday, and that's what made me think about that. So let me bring up the satellite for the Plainfield day so you can see that take place. So it looks like a lot of cirrus in place across northern Illinois. And then along this boundary right here, along the Wisconsin border, we get initiation. So the storm goes up, and this is 1830Z. This is about 1:30 p.m. And looks simply massive there, right around the Rockford area, and that moves into the western Chicago suburbs. Okay, so on that day, the CAPE was definitely realized. Let me see if I have a sounding for that. I probably don't. Nope, I don't have that. Okay, number 2. That's going to be July 2nd, 1999, North Platte, Nebraska. 73-33 CAPE. Okay, what happened on that day? North Platte is right here. So we did have some storms up in the higher terrain of Colorado. Plenty of convection there, probably a bit of upslope. And then the radar looked like this. So I don't have any SPC storm reports for that day, so I don't really know what happened, but I'd imagine there was some hailers on that day. And then that brings us to the number 1 day, July 11th, 2000, Topeka, 7,400 CAPE. And what happened on that day? Topeka is right here. You can see there was some high-based convection earlier during the day, because during the summertime we see a lot of overnight MCSs through that area, and that's very important for irrigation and agriculture in that area. It's a very big corn and wheat country. So mostly just a lot of debris cloud during the early afternoon. We had one little cell go up around Falls City, but it looks like that evolved into an orphan anvil. Nothing in Kansas itself. So we didn't see much of anything on that day. Then the radar on that day looked like that. There's the Falls City stuff. So not much of anything on that day. But I will show you the sounding. Let me bring up Rayab here real quick. Accidentally shut Rayab down. Okay, open sounding. And that was 2000, July 11th. Okay, so we're importing the data. And there's Topeka. Let me change the diagram so I wanted to show the 100 millibars there to be the top. Okay, so this is a sounding with, according to University of Wyoming, 7400 CAPE. Rayab comes up with 5300 here. So they both got different computation methods, but you see the very high instability. Likely crop irrigation had a lot to do with this, with moisturizing the lowest 75 millibars or so. And then lifting that sounding. This is showing that very huge CAPE there. So I guess we were kind of capped that day. And if storms did form, let me find the MPL for that day. Wanted to see what the storm tops would have been. MPL there, 65 rounded up to 66,000 for storm tops, if anything had formed on that day. And you know that there would probably be a few 70,000 foot storm tops on that day, because the atmosphere is not really homogeneous, and there are probably going to be a few areas away from the radiosonde sites that have better parcels. Okay. Let's see, we'll take one last look at the current storm situation. And again, I don't think we have very much going on here. Let me shift this down to the southern plains. Okay, so this is showing the northerly flow back here behind the front. Remember, the cold front is way back here. Warm front along the Red River. Dry line up through the Abilene area and then up to around Altus. And actually, I think that warm front could be a little further up the boundary like that. Okay, so that's the pattern we have in place, and just not much going on at this time. Looks like most of our storm activity will be tomorrow. Okay, Sue M. asked if El Reno had high CAPE. That's a good question. We can let's bring that up really quickly before I sign out. University of Wyoming. I think they may have been just below some of those more extreme values. Okay, so to get these values, I come up here, and I think that was in 2013 when that happened, May 31st, which is June 1st, 0Z. Okay, so hopefully I got that set up right. Okay, CAPE 594. Okay, so I think at that point the convection was interfering with the radiosonde launch. I think there's a good chance of that. Let me look at the sounding real quick and see what that looked like. So that's one reason these records are not a complete value. Okay, moisture, low 40s, low 50s just off the surface, and then 59 dew point at Oklahoma City. Maybe I have the wrong date here. May 31st. Oh, okay. Yeah, I've got this set up wrong. Sorry. Okay, yeah, that looks a lot better. Now you can see 70s dew points in the lowest 150 millibars and very high CAPE being indicated. But we don't have any sounding data above 250 millibars, so I think it's not going to be able to calculate that. It's coming up with 3018 CAPE, but that might be... I don't think we're going to be able to get a valid value from that. Okay, so the listing showing nothing above 250 millibars. Okay, 3018. So something like that from El Reno, that value is going to have to be extrapolated somehow. One thing we can do is maybe look at Fort Worth to get a ballpark. Fort Worth sounding on that day had 1700 CAPE. So let's see if that's representative. No, it's probably not representative. You can see that there's a difference in the moisture there at Fort Worth. Oklahoma City had a moisture plot more like this. And I think Oklahoma City had more of a cold mid and upper level. Okay, so that's just an example of one situation where if we had the data, it would probably be in the records there. And there's other situations I know where the thunderstorms interfered with the radiosonde launch. They arrived at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., and we were not able to get a good value. So it's definitely by no means an inclusive list, but anyway, there it is. That'll give you just kind of a rough idea what the higher values were throughout history. Okay. I think that'll probably do it for me this evening. I appreciate you joining, and hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow once we have the thunderstorms underway. Take care and have a good evening.